Hi, my name's Grace Spain, and I did the topic internet addiction. And from a main focal question is interdiction wrong, and are we allowed to limit people's use? And for a couple, the background of why it's harm, the first one I have is a review of the research of internet addiction, and this was from 1999. And from what I've just found interesting, when I was doing my research, I found a lot of articles from like either 1998 to 2006. Like, it seemed like a lot of people were researching internet addiction, and not so much recently. So I'm not sure if that means we just come to terms that we are internet addicted now. Basically, everyone's fears have came true, but that's just like one thing I'd like to note. But for this first one, a review of the research of internet addiction, this was a really interesting article, and they basically found, and this was in Thailand, they found that the most predictor of someone being internet addicting was that chat rooms and like communication, and I thought that was really interesting. And then I think they spent 20 to 25 hours on the internet. And for my next one is Shirley Kennedy, 2013, of an article, Hand Over That Smartphone. And basically, this article listed different types of, and this was done in a college study, but it listed different types of internet addiction, so like subcategories. So this includes cybersexual, so like addiction to porn, cyber relationships, online chat rooms again, net compulsions, gambling, and computer addiction, which is gaming. And Dr. Kimberly's book was also a really interesting read. I was only able to get like the first 12 pages, but even though it was like an introduction to the book, she had so much information here. And I recommend, if anyone's interested in this subject, read it too. But she talks about how that many countries have come forward saying that they have a problem with internet addiction, like Italy and Pakistan, just for example. And common indicators of internet addiction include a variety of things of like social isolation, being secretive, demanding privacy. So there's a lot of ways someone can see someone being internet addicted. And from our book, in the Ethics for the Informational Age, there was a really interesting interview with Cal Newport, where he basically made the word, I guess, of deep work, where it's an activity of focusing without distraction for a long time on a cognitively demanding task. So basically, he said how the best way to get stuff done is that you section yourself off from every distraction, no phone, and hopefully turn off notifications on whatever you're working on, because uh, even getting an email can distract you, and there is no such thing as multitasking because you just end up doing everything a little bit worse, you know. So it really is best to just focus on one single task ahead of you. And for reasons of like the opposing side of this, why internet addiction, or usage isn't always bad, and why we're kind of a bit strict on the term, and should DSMV, which is a booklet for therapists to diagnose people, should the internet addiction be considered a mental disorder, by Ronald Pies. This is also an interesting read, and basically he argues that there is no universal agreement for a specific diagnosis criteria of internet addiction, so there could never really be an official "you are internet addicted." And one in this article, he also talked about how there was 12 kids that were, again, diagnosed, but not really, with internet addiction because they were like on their phone too much, and that's what they said that what their problem was. And it was again revealed that these kids actually had way more troubling issues underlying, so like depressive disorders, schizophrenia, and obsessive compulsion. So like internet addiction is not really a primary condition; it's more of like a sub condition from a greater problem. And if we were to really be like internet addiction so bad, then it'll take away from like the real problem that's happening. And then does internet and computer addiction exist, by Mark Griffins. This one, if you're gonna read anything from my list, it'll be this one because it was really interesting, where he took basically 5 studies of real life examples of people that either got their lives ruined from technology or benefited from technology. And these were kind of the benefits that he listed. And honestly, I feel like at the end of the read, I was more on the benefit side. And because a couple examples include Internet was commonly used to counteract deficiencies of relationships, lack of friends, physical appearance, disability, coping, and games. In some cases, online relationships proved to be healthy because they weren't based on appearance, and people with pre-existing antisocial tendencies actually got help through the internet, through these real life examples. Again, this was from 2000, so maybe the internet's changed. I don't know, but it's still, I feel like a lot of it's still relevant today. And again, Dr. Kimley's book about internet addiction test, um, she not only talked about, obviously internet addiction is bad, but she also made sure to defend internet because she's like, there's a reason why people aren't going around being, or therapists aren't being, you're internet addicted, you're internet addicted. It's because internet has so many positives, and there really is no such thing as like an addiction that has positive sides. Like there's no positive cigarettes, there's no positive gambling, but the internet, for example, people can conduct research, people can have business transactions, access libraries, and probably the biggest thing is they can communicate. So there's so many benefits to technology that it's kind of so hard to rule out you shouldn't be on it. It's not a yes and no. And just from my initial position, my initial thought on internet addiction was that there's barely any benefits associated to excessive use of internet. Therefore, it will be our best effort to educate people to lower their consumption, in parentheses, perhaps even add some regulation. I also thought internet addiction should be an official addiction in the DSMV as it can cause many people to take it more seriously. And then after all this research, my final thing, I disagree now with my original, because out of the research, I can't say I feel the same way. I believe there are harms of excessive internet use, but I didn't take into account many ways people could have benefited from it. I also can't imagine what our pandemic would have looked like if we didn't have access to internet. I believe we should make efforts to lower people's consumptions of internet if they are harming themselves or someone. Other than that, release in our business or, our stay, but help people spend their time, especially if they intently enjoy it. This can be described with Kantiism as its main ethical framework would be to combat discrimination, which means lowering internet use to some individuals, again, who are not harming themselves or someone else, will be considered unethical. Kantiism also talks about how everyone is held to the same moral standard, meaning we would be allowed to limit internet to those who abuse it. And that was my final conclusion. And I was shocked that I did change my initial position, and because I felt I was going to find so many harms, and I did find a lot of harms, but after seeing that internet could be so beneficial in so many ways, I couldn't stand it by the fact that we are allowed to regulate and put people's usage to that. And here are my references.